In this video, I thought I would talk about when I like to throw a Whopper Plopper versus a buzzbait. As a lot of you anglers probably know, these baits are actually fairly similar in the way that you kind of just cast them out and really reel them back. They kind of have a similar sound, a similar action, but there are a few key differences, a few different times that I'm going to throw these. Now, coming up on kind of the late summer and fall period, these baits right here, I throw an awful lot. And so I thought I would go ahead and just talk about some of the differences in these baits. Now, before we get into all that, this one is brought to you by Finn Fishing Apparel. And right now over at Finn Fishing, as a lot of you guys know, for the month of August, so for just about another 2 weeks, I am running a contest, a giveaway over at Finn Fishing. So for every dollar that is spent, you get an entry into a giveaway where I'm actually going to be giving away these 7 bait cast rods right here. These are some older Daiwas and Akumas, rods that I have used, I was going to sell, but they are still in really good condition, and I'm just going to give them away randomly in this contest. I'm also giving away a brand new Arc Gravity 2 reel. Also, anyone who buys something right now in the month of August gets a free mystery lure in their package, and anyone who buys a USA made sun shirt like the one you see me wearing also gets a free Bassmaster neck gaiter, which is kind of more of a fitted neck gaiter, really high quality. But anyways, tons of free stuff going out the door right now. Shopping at Finn Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. All right. Let's talk a little bit about these baits right here. And like I said, these are fairly similar when it comes to baits. Like, they make a fairly similar sound. You really just cast them out, reel them in. They're both a topwater bait. And I know that depending on how long you've been fishing, you may kind of ask yourself, hey, when is one better to use than the other? And let's just kind of start by stating the obvious. There are going to be a number of different times when you're out there fishing where using one or another is not going to get you substantially more bites or less bites than the other. You know, there's a lot of times when we are out there fishing where you can even be fishing baits that are as different as a buzz or a Whopper Plopper and a chatterbait, and you're not going to get that much different as far as amount of bites. Now, really what I say a lot of times is there's always going to be an 80-20 rule in bass fishing, and I think that it kind of applies here. There's probably about 80% of the time where you could probably throw both of these baits and get the exact same number of bites. But there's that 20% of the time that really is going to separate you as an angler, where you will get more bites on one versus another. And that's what I want to talk about right now. So let's talk about just a few characteristics of these baits too, which can help you to understand when to throw them. Now, one thing that I really want to talk about is the baits and their castability. A bait like a buzzbait actually skips very, very well. I think that there's a lot of anglers, I know myself included, I didn't know that for a number of years until I started casting a buzzbait a lot. And if you have a big horny toad style plastic bait like this on the back of it, it will actually skip very well. So if you're wanting to get a bait underneath overhanging trees, underneath docks, anytime you're wanting to skip a bait, obviously the buzzbait is going to be a better bait to throw, because a Whopper Plopper is not going to skip, like, period, in discussion. Whopper Ploppers will not skip, a buzzbait will. So obviously that's going to be a better bait. Now, the other thing characteristic about these baits, the buzzbait, I would say on average, tends to be a little bit more of a subtle bait. It doesn't have quite the plopping noise that obviously a Whopper Plopper has. Now, I've also used buzz baits that are just very loud. They are just as obnoxious as a Whopper Plopper. But I will say that most times you can actually fish a buzz bait in a little bit more of a subtle way than a Whopper Plopper. So sometimes when you're fishing around bass that have seen a lot of pressure, having a bait that is either very obnoxious or very subtle, you will see a big difference in the number of bites that you get. Now, I can't come out here and just absolutely say it's always going to be this one or it's always going to be this one. I will say that most of the time in really high pressure situations, I do like a subtle lure. But on the flip side, when you get into areas of the country, for example, in Ohio, where I live, highly pressured bodies of water. With that being said, some guys are all thinking to fish subtle lures. So in that situation, sometimes a very loud, obnoxious lure is one that bass haven't seen as much. So really the core concept here is try to throw the bait that you feel like most anglers are not fishing, because usually that is what's going to get you more bites out there on the water. If the bass have seen a lot of the exact same baits, they are not going to respond. They're going to have more of a negative reaction to them. Now, most of the time, you really don't fully understand this unless there's guys out there that you're actually able to see running around with a bait. But what I've always suggested and what I've always found is anytime you get on a buzzbait bite or a whopper plopper, just rig them both up and cast both of them. Give this one 15 minutes, give this one 15 minutes. You are going to see differences in the way that the bass respond to them. Maybe every time you get bit, it's on a buzzbait. Maybe every time you get bit, it's on a whopper plopper. Maybe every time you get bit on a whopper plopper, it is a lot more of an aggressive strike and you think that the bass might actually be leaning in. Or maybe you will just see that you get bigger bites on one or other. Maybe you're getting the exact same amount of bites with both these baits, but one of them is yielding a lot bigger bite. Those are the type of things that I'm always going to look for. Now, another big characteristic about the buzzbait where it kind of beats a whopper plopper is that it is a more weedless bait. If I am fishing around a lot of wood cover, if I'm fishing around even a lot of vegetation, I tend to lean on a buzzbait because it's going to come through that better than a bait like a whopper plopper that has treble hooks. So that is another time where I'm obviously going to fish a buzzbait over the plopper. Now, I'm not saying that a whopper plopper won't work around grass. I'm not saying that it won't work around wood. I'm just saying that I tend to pick up a buzzbait first because I know it's going to come through that cover a little bit better. So that's why I go with it. Now, I will say that to me, I have found over the years that if you are trying to, there's some lakes across the country that I fished that set up similarly. They are clear bodies of water with a lot of rock. You know, and this can apply to a lot of different lakes, you know, like Lake of the Ozarks, you know, the Bull Shoals. There's a lot in that Missouri area. Obviously, there's a couple of lakes around me that are a little bit cleaner and they have a lot of rock, just straight rock banks. Those ones, for whatever reason, I tend to use a whopper plopper on a little bit more. I don't know what it is. I don't know if the fish in those rocky environments are able to be called out easier with a plopper, but that's just what I have seen. So a lot of times when I'm fishing on clear bodies of water with a lot of rock, I've done this in the Carolinas before as well, I tend to pick up a whopper plopper. Again, not saying a buzzbait won't work, it just tends to be my first thought as far as the bait goes. Now, one thing that I have found with both these baits is that there are days out there with topwaters where a stop and go retrieve is critical. With a buzzbait, you cannot do a stop and go retrieve. Like if you stop it, it's gonna sink. I've never caught a buzzbait subsurface before, although they are bass. I'm not saying that that couldn't happen. As a matter of fact, when I was really young and I first acquired a buzzbait, I thought it was a spinnerbait with a weird blade. And so I was fishing it below the surface. Never caught any that way. And then one day I reeled it really fast. It was buzzing across the top of the surface. And I'm like, that's a really cool action. And then that's when I realized it's not a spinnerbait, it's a buzzbait. That's just me being like an idiot 13-year-old. But anyways, when it comes to topwater days, there's a lot of days where I see that a stop and go retrieve is a really big deal. You can't do a stop and go retrieve with a buzzbait. You can do it with a whopper plopper. And I will say that there was a day I fished down in North Carolina where if you were not stopping your buzzbait every now and then, you would literally not get bit. You could cast this, sorry, did I say a buzzbait? I meant to say a whopper plopper. If you weren't stopping your whopper plopper, you would not get bit. And I was literally, I was casting a whopper plopper around. By accident, I killed it to like scratch my face. It was something really random and I had a vicious strike from a spotted bass. And I like set the hook, caught that fish, and it clicked right then and there with me that the fish hit it on the pause. So I started incorporating it, and it was literally like as close to a light switch moment that I've ever had in bass fishing, where I went from having very few bites at all, like pretty much I think I'd caught one in several hours, to it seemed like I was just catching fish very, very often. And it was all because I was just incorporating a stop retrieve. I would reel that thing, kill it, peesh! I mean, just explosive bites. It was a lot of fun. So when it comes to buzzbaits and whopper ploppers, I think the big core concept is there aren't going to be a ton of situations where one performs over the other, and I can't always tell you exactly when it's going to be. There's going to be situations when one is more efficient than the other one. But really, if you get on a good topwater bite, rig them up and cast both of them. I cast these on totally different gear. You know, my buzzbait, I like more of a spinnerbait rod with 30-pound braid, where the whopper plopper, I like more of a almost chatterbait rod with 30-pound braid. So both 30-pound braid, but very different because one has a single hook and one has a treble hook. So guys, that's kind of the big thing when it comes to these baits. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down below. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. Don't forget to check out that fin fishing gear, and I'll see you guys in the next one.